Hi, everybody. Um, welcome. I am really excited to introduce to you Dr. Ting Jiang, who is a principal of behavioral tech and architecture at the Center of Advanced Hindsight, a behavioral science lab at Duke University. Dr. Jiang will shed light on the science behind games and how to apply serious games and gamification to promote learning and adopt better behaviors. So with that in mind, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Jiang.
Everyone. It has been an amazing 3 days, and I thank you for your grit and persistence in staying here for my talk. So our lab is a little bit special from normal scientific center. We really try to create impactful real-life solutions. So all the way ranging from apps to games to tweaks in existing products. And today I'm going to talk about how to overcome the Homosapien in us by using games and gamification. And the question I would like to start with is, what do you think needs to be changed? So I'd like everyone to just shout out something you think that needs to be changed in the world. Compassion, poverty, inequality, education. What about what needs to be changing us? Do we think that we are perfect? And behavior. What could be a very impactful outcome if we could use games to prevent us from dying from silly reasons? Now, do we die from silly reasons? Currently, what has been killing us? So this next question might be sounding a little silly, but you'll see why later. What does Simpson and oh, this is not yet changed. Sorry. Okay, I have been. All right. Sorry, that has not been. So, okay, there you go. So what do Homosapien and Homosapien have in common? How many of you ate too much yesterday? How many of you didn't exercise as much as you wish this week? Traveling is tough on you, huh? How many of you, ever text and drive? Very honest, thank you. How many of you sometimes skip washing your hands after using bathroom? Here, not so dangerous, but okay. So, as we know, if we look at this map of top 10 causes of death, can you guess which one represents which region in the world? Which one is more advanced and developed? The left or the right? More developed in the left. That's exactly right. And what's the pattern here? It's that we are getting better and better at killing ourselves with our own behavior. Because why? With heart disease, heart attack. Is there anything we can do to change? For sure. A lot of the heart disease then can be prevented by your own exercising more, move more, eat less, be more relaxed, be less stressed, sleep more. If we look at blue zones, all of those areas where people live over 100 years old and die from natural deaths, not deaths caused by our own behavior, you're not going to see much of heart attack, cancer, and all of these, right? And life quality is going to be much better over time. Now, there's some evidence here. If we think about the social impact of just us, human behavior, just getting a little bit better, how much is it better than to actually developing new medicines, which bringing a new drug to the market is estimated to be more than $2 billion. Is it that difficult or that costly to get us just to exercise a bit more? Not as much, right? Now, why don't we? Do we want to? Do we not know better? New Year resolutions. Every year we make them. And look at, do we know we should be doing these things? Yes, we do. What about success rate? Very low. And we still make them every year. We seem not to understand that there's a gap of our intention, our understanding of what's good for us, and actually how to better implement it. And at the moment, I think the biggest gap is indeed treating behavioral science too much as social science and not as much as medical science. There's so much technicality in why we're failing to behave certain ways that if we treat it more seriously and diagnose and treat and test systematically, we can be much better. And we do also need games and gamification and XR, all of these technologies that can engage human beings better. And I'm gonna talk about that in a moment. But here is the map of how many people actually meet the exercise portion every day. It's about 23%, including California, 24% meet the standard. Right? So why is it so difficult? And what's the vision of one day if we can do all the right behavior? And why do we need games and gamification for it? So we'd like to play a little game with you. And it's actually a real prize. So these irrational games developed by our lab. And the person who wins the game will get a mail from us. And we'll send it to you. You don't even need to carry it. Okay, you just need to give me your postal address afterwards. The game is to guess an experimental outcome. And here's the experiment. So people coming to the lab, and there are two groups. One group were asked to eat 2 cookies, but they also see the radishes. So these things are there. And the other group were asked to eat 2 radishes, but cannot eat the cookie. And then they were asked to solve this puzzle. Without their knowing, the puzzle is actually unsolvable. Okay? So the question is, how long does it take them to persist in solving the puzzle? The one who ate 2 cookies took 19 minutes. What do you think of the one who ate 2 radishes? Here are the answers, and I would like us to do how to kind of identify the winner. So if you think the answer is 1, when I shout 1, you're gonna stand up. And the person who stand up to the right answer the fastest will get a prize. Okay? Are you ready? All right. So, again, how long does it take for the people who ate 2 radishes, not the cookies, to solve this unsolvable puzzle? Like, how long do they on average persist? If you think it's 1, 8 minutes, stand up. Okay, 1 person. 2, 19 minutes. 3, 25 minutes. Okay, I think I see you. 4, 41 minutes. You were the first. Okay, very good. The answer is 8 minutes. Congratulations, you're the only person. Okay, here's a dishonesty pill, actually. So if I don't send it to you, you can give it to me next time and say that I was lying, okay? So it turns out that, there's such a thing as limitation of our cognitive capacity, and there's depletion. So being tempted by the cookies was really depleting on our energies. And in fact, you might think, okay, I'll give you another quick example. So for those who are not so familiar with behavior science, this is a really seminal paper study on so-called the jam study. So in the supermarket, they tested, presenting 6 jams versus 24 jams. And then the question is, how many approach the jams, how many try, how many actually end up buying it? So 40%, 60% seems like, if you present more jams, more people approach it. Now the question is, how many people end up buying it? What's your guess? More or less when you have 6 jams versus 24. If you think more people buy it, raise your hand. More of 6, yeah? Okay. Okay, and the other things that It's less, it's more, and it is 30% more. Again, some of these might feel more counterintuitive, and then the question is, so this is actually called the decision paralysis or choice overload. It's a very standard behavioral principle. And you might say, oh, these are just, consumers kind of silly, making sort of just unimportant decisions. This is a graph of judges in Israel. Over 1,100 decisions. They examine the patterns of when they give a favorable parole decision. So these are kind of, prisoners that could kind of be given favorable decision to go out or not. And they find this really weird pattern of going up and down, right? It's not really like that much depending on the prisoner because it's randomly drawn. And what happened is that when the judges are getting tired and getting fatigued right before their 10 a.m. break, right before their lunch break, they stick to the default. They didn't want to let the prisoners out. They just try to stick to whatever that doesn't take. It's more risk averse, right? And this is a huge decision. It's not unimportant little decision, but yet it's still impacted by how our brain works. So how much foresight do we have really when predicting our own behavior, other people's behavior? And a lot of times, even these days, Facebook, a lot of tech companies run experiments, even ourselves, we still, about 30% of the time, we're not gonna kind of prove what they actually hypothesize. And can behavioral science add something to it? For sure. If you understand the underlying mechanism, you will be better at predicting. Okay, so this is Einstein who said, if I had 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem. And I'll present you a little framework how you can kind of define the problem better before you create your product solutions. Because you don't necessarily need to spend so much money creating something that is not gonna work as well. Because of time, I'm gonna skip this. As you know, we have these visual illusions, and oftentimes we know, these two lines are really the same length, but still we cannot overcome that bias, and it's deeply rooted in us, and it's evolutionary, supported because we need to rely on these heuristics to make fast decisions. However, they don't always work as good as we want. And so this is the system 1 versus system 2, just to understand that for your system 2, it tackles more important major decisions, but the space there is limited, okay? And for system 1, you deal with heuristics, habits. There's a lot of automatic processes that help you with daily decisions. And it's important to understand where the behavioral barriers rest. Is it because people don't understand the information, they lack information, so-called lacking intention? So there you can have wrong knowledge, the wrong attitude, wrong perception, or sometimes even supported by your beliefs about what other people think. And all of this can lead to not wanting to do the right thing. So for example, with female genital cutting, a lot of societies would be resistant to even want to do it. But with exercise and a lot of this other behavior, you know what's the right thing to do, you do want to do it, and there you have the so-called intention behavior gap. And so for games that are aimed at changing, depending on what the problem is, are you gonna create a game that actually adjusts the intention part, or the intention behavior gap can look completely different? These are kind of different, I will, because of time, I will not go into it. But if anybody is interested in this list, do let me know. And understanding this too, it's gonna help you really understand why certain interventions don't work, or what should be the intervention. So here, telling this guy that donut leads to diabetes is not gonna impact him when he's making an automatic decision, right? So a lot of the time, we're dealing with the Homosapien in ourselves. And the question is, how to overcome it? This is one simple solution of getting people to walk more on the stairs than the escalator. And then we call this, I think you are all applying, all good game designers are applying this rule over and over, but we have a name for it. You know, in behavioral science, we say this is called reward substitution. So people tend to be myopic. They will not do something out of a consideration of a long-term interest. But if we kind of give them some short-run benefits, their automatic system might jump on it, and they will do it. But they're doing the right behavior for the wrong reason. Yeah? But this is not necessarily always long-lasting, because it's still sort of trying to grab your attention, right? So something with habit is so beautiful is that, you know, you brush your teeth every day without thinking about all the little steps. I mean, it's very automatic. It doesn't need your attention. And the question is, how many good habits do we have? And how many bad habits do we have? And why are we not actually changing them? So a lot of the behavioral gaps, why we're performing so irrationally, can be actually solved by creating good habits or abandoning bad habits. However, it's a very daunting task, and I think we have, our lab have been trying to create these habit change games, and we are kind of making baby steps in terms of the game design. But we know the mechanisms, and we actually need collaborators in game industry to help us be better, but it's something very promising in terms of the outcome. So I would also recommend everyone check out Mickey's talk and his articles related to the war for attention. We really need to think about what kind of games can help people change for better without grabbing their attention. Or you play the game until you form the habit, and afterwards, you let habit take care of it. You don't need to play the game forever. You don't actually need to create games that sustain the behavior. But for some, games like gamification of running, for example, football, you can just let it be, the game that sustains that right behavior, right? So let me give you another example of, actually, because of time, I might just want to skip this. But okay, let me talk about the habits versus bounded willpower. So for reward substitution, if it's something very painful, for a period of time, Dan needs to take this medicine that has huge side effect for 3 times a week for almost a year and a half. So medication adherence is one of the inadherence is one of the biggest killers. And the problem there is very painful to take it, and you don't see the benefit, the reward right away. And so what he ended up doing is that he rented a movie that he likes every time when he needs to take that medication. So he tried to reward himself whenever he needs to do this something painful for the future. However, for medication that doesn't have side effect, if I create a habit of always getting you to take your medication right after you brush your teeth, that could be sufficient. But if it has a huge side effect, it might not still work if I just give you a habit of doing that, right? You still need to compensate it with an additional reward. So that's 2 different kinds of games you can create. You can help them acquire healthy habits, or reward them directly on their healthy behavior. So all that just to say that we're less rational than we think, but our irrationality is actually much more predictable than we think. And there's so much behavioral insights out there that you can make use of. So there's a hope to create a framework to mass produce behavioral change games as life-saving medicines. And we need to bring science plus game, exercise design, AI, all of these different disciplines together to solve complex problems. So I'll give you a quick examples of a game that we create in the lab. And this is based on the saving for healthcare. So people are dying, sometimes even from diarrhea in Africa, just because they don't have a few dollars in the pocket. And when they delay sending the kids to the doctor, the kids already, they just, what was the number? 1 in 26 children still die from diarrhea. So we try to get them to save for healthcare, health insurance. However, we found from qualitative research that people themselves said, it's extremely important to save for healthcare, but they don't end up actually doing it. And so here again, how much you can get from self-reported data is something that at the moment is also a gap. Like human-centered design sometimes also rely a lot on what people, users themselves know instead of what experts, almost like doctors, know about what the problem is. So we try to actually validate that whether they truly internalize their intention or not. And we created a game to intensify the intention or bring it to the emotional gut level. These are the unnecessary expenses that people self-reported to have been wasting their money on instead of saving on healthcare. And these are still people, in poverty. So what happens is that long-term benefits are very invisible. And so when they were tempted by the Coca-Cola advertisement and shop everywhere, when they have their weekly income, they have basically $5 maybe for that week. And what they do is that they go to the bar, they go for betting, and they go for these immediate rewards. They don't see, the benefits or the costs of those money actually that could have saved lives down the road. So this game, which we call it Happy Money, started with giving them some income, which it's like an inheritance of like $12, and every month they have to make decisions on how much they, pay for different rent, food. That's kind of necessary expense. But then they also get a choice to spend their money and time to go to college or to go to the bar, to buy a chicken that lay eggs every month, they give you income every month, or to spending on a soda that give you some benefits only for that month. So there are 9 months in this game. So in every month, they are practicing making long-term interested decisions that's in the interest of the long run or only in the short run. And they discover later on that there's consequences. So starting from month 4, people actually got health shocks. So they got this event card, and it can be positive or negative. And some of them, if it's health shocks, can really put the whole family into very, tough situation. And they got really emotionally engaged, right? So these are the chicken versus soda versus building house versus meat. And you can see that it costs certain money. For example, chicken, you can get a happiness token every month, but it costs $300. It's more expensive than if you go for a soda. It also gives you 1 happiness, but it costs only $100. However, only for that round. So that's how you distinguish sort of long-term interested versus short-term interested ones. And this is the health shock card that they could get. And I'll show you a little quick clip of how they play it. So this is one of the most fun moments when the moment of drawing a card, and they were really anxious after some time of like, oh, not a diarrhea, please don't give me a health shock. This is like just you get a chicken as a gift, so it's positive, so that's fine, right? Okay. So it turns out that they were having a lot of fun playing this game, but also when we evaluate the game, and that's also where the science part comes in, is that we not only rely on their self-reported data on how much they learn, and they reported prioritizing items, budgeting, etc. But we also capture in-game measures of their myopic tendency. So every time when they get a happiness, we get a stamp. So basically, even in a board game situation, we were able to record all the data. So on the right is something that will actually drop when the game is scaled up. But during this pre-test period, we kept this in order to measure also how quickly people learn over time, and also how it is linked, their myopic tendency in the game versus their actual saving behavior in real life. Before we prove which version of the game is most effective. So we tweak different dimensions. For example, how negative should the emotional experience be for them to really learn more effectively? Maybe sometimes it could be too much, or so we tweak these different levels and different dimensions. Should they play with their husband and wife together, or should they play with just their peers, etc., etc. So we actually also find out something that it's okay. So we also find out that they learn much better with cutting down on unnecessary expenses than actually investing in really long-term investment. So that takes many more rounds, replay to understand. Okay, so here I just want to summarize that habit formation is something that still needs to follow after this game, because you only get them to understand what is the best. Why is health saving actually so important at the emotional level, not just at the theoretical level, even if they understand that it's the best. And I have our habit game, actually a prototype here. If you want to take a look afterwards, you can grab me. And I just want to do a recap that behavioral science can really add to games production by helping you define the problem, creating a prototype that is really addressing the exact problem that you want to address, but also in testing and tweaking the prototype before you scale up. And if you find me on LinkedIn, there will be these extra compilation of habit change games and gamification insights, which you can download, and they're free for everyone to use. And thank you very much.